Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The cold Baltic Sea wind blew through the small port town, making the light curtains dance in Elena and her daughter Anna's modest apartment. The 10-year-old girl sat by the window, her eyes fixed on the gray horizon where the waves crashed violently. There was something in the air that evening, a tension Anna couldn't name, but she felt deep in her heart. Her mother, Elena, was busy tidying up some papers on the coffee table. She had always avoided talking about the past. But tonight, an unusual melancholy weighed on her face. Anna, curious, broke the silence. "Mom, why doesn't Dad live with us?" Elena looked away, her face contorted. She knew she couldn't push the question away any longer. But how could she explain to a child that the father she'd never known was someone so powerful that he'd shaped the destiny of an entire country? She only whispered, "Some stories are too complicated to tell now." Anna frowned, but an inexplicable instinct grew within her. She had to know the truth, no matter how difficult it was. Her thoughts wandered to rumors she'd heard in the neighborhood, whispers about a famous man who might be her father. The idea fascinated her as much as it terrified her. The next day, a school trip to Moscow would confront Anna with a destiny she never imagined. The streets of the capital buskied with life and secrets, and official portraits of the president covered the walls. As her gaze met those of a man in a grand hall, something inside Anna snapped. A shudder ran through her. What if the truth Elena had tried to protect had finally come knocking on her door? Fate was about to reveal what even power and politics could not hide. The small kitchen of their apartment smelled of fresh bread and the sea. Anna always sat in the same spot by the window, watching the boats return to port. For the past few weeks, her questions about her father had become more and more insistent. "Mom," she said one morning, her eyes full of seriousness, "why don't you ever want to talk about him?" Elena sighed and placed her hands on the table. Her fingers trembled slightly, a sign that she was trying to mask her anxiety. "Anna, some stories are complicated. And some people can't be in our lives, even if we love them." The girl frowned, sensing that something important was being kept from her. "But Mom, I feel like there's something I need to know, something you don't want to tell me." Elena looked away. The past she had tried to keep buried was resurfacing. Before Anna was born, she had been involved in a brief, intense, and passionate relationship. But the man she loved was powerful, influential, and already engaged in a public life that made any intimacy impossible. At the time, Elena had chosen to protect her daughter from this dangerous and exposed world. "Anna, your father," she finally whispered, but her voice broke. He's part of a very complicated world, a world where sometimes people disappear even when they want to stay." Anna felt her heart clench. She wanted to understand, but her mother's words were like a veil over the truth. Yet, deep down, a hunch prevailed: this mysterious father was no ordinary stranger. Something in her mother's tone, in her gaze, told her that he was exceptional, and that this would change her life forever. That night, as she lay in bed, Anna looked at the ceiling and thought, "One day I will find him, and I will know the truth, whatever the cost." A few days after that conversation with her mother, Anna was strolling through the bustling market of her small port town. The stalls were overflowing with fresh fish and colorful vegetables. The traders were chatting and laughing, but some were also whispering stories that only attentive children could hear. Anna stopped near an old woman selling pine cones. She heard two neighbors talking in low voices. "You know, it seems that little Anna has a very influential father." "Yes, a powerful man. No one would expect that. His mother never wanted to talk about it, but I swear it's true." Anna's heart was pounding so hard she felt like it might burst. Every word echoed in her head. A powerful father, could he be someone she only knew from newspapers and television pictures? Back home, Anna asked her mother her questions, but Elena immediately changed the subject. This silence only fueled the girl's determination. She realized she had to discover the truth for herself. This obsession became her constant thought. At school, she would look at the newspapers and magazines her classmates brought in. Every political face, every photo of a prominent figure, would spark a glimmer of hope in her eyes. What if it was him? What if my father really was that man? This rumor sowed uncontrollable curiosity in her, but also fear. The fear that if the truth were to emerge, it would change her life forever. Yet Anna knew she could no longer back down. She had to know. And soon, the opportunity to confront this mystery would present itself, closer and more unexpected than she could ever have imagined. The school bus hummed gently along the highway leading to Moscow. Anna stared out the window, fascinated by the changing landscape. The wooden houses of her port city were gradually giving way to the imposing buildings and crowded avenues of the capital. Every sign, every monument seemed to whisper to her that something important awaited her. Sitting next to her classmates, she said nothing. Her mind was absorbed in her thoughts, imagining what the meeting with her supposed father would be like. What if it were true? What if the man we see on television every day was really my father? Her heart was beating so fast she was afraid it would be noticed. In Moscow, the group visited the Kremlin and its historical sites. Anna wandered through the majestic corridors, observing the official portraits of presidents and political figures. The gilding and portraits impressed all the students, but Anna felt something else, a mixture of fascination and anticipation. Then, in a large hall where portraits and official photographs stood, she saw a man with piercing eyes, surrounded by guards and officials. He spoke calmly, but every gesture seemed charged with power and control. A strange sensation ran through Anna, her breath caught and her eyes widened. There was something familiar about this man. Without thinking, as if driven by an inner force, Anna stepped forward slightly, forgetting the safety rules and the presence of adults around her. A shiver ran through her body. Her thoughts were confused but clear at the same time. It's him. He's my father. At that moment, a mixture of excitement and fear gripped her. She knew she had to speak, to confront the truth she had waited her whole life to hear. And what she said would change everything. Fate had just placed Anna face to face with the man who could finally fill the void in her heart, or make it deeper. The hall was large, decorated with red carpets and gilded portraits. Officials and guards moved quickly, discussing protocols and security, but Anna saw none of it. Her gaze was fixed on the man in the dark suit standing near the podium, Vladimir Putin. Every step she took seemed to echo in the silence of her mind. She felt her legs tremble, but her determination was stronger than her fear. The faces of the adults around her faded, replaced by the image of the man she believed to be her father. Anna finally stopped a few meters away from him. Her breath was short, but her voice, when she spoke, was clear and firm. "Sir, my mother tells me that you are my father, the one who abandoned me." An icy silence filled the hall. The guards froze, the officials stopped talking. Putin slowly turned his head toward the voice that had interrupted him. His eyes, usually impassive and calculating, widened. The man who dominated the country suddenly seemed vulnerable, caught off guard by the little girl standing before him. He approached slightly, his steps measured, his impassive face gradually regaining its usual gravity. Who are you, child?" he asked, his voice low but authoritative, mingling surprise with a strange mixture of recognition and doubt. Anna felt her heart pound. "My name is Anna, my mother's name is Elena. She told you about me." Putin remained silent for a long moment. The face he showed the world betrayed nothing, but behind his eyes lay a mixture of long-suppressed emotions, shock, guilt, nostalgia. It was a truth he had wanted to ignore, but which had now emerged in the most unexpected and cruel way. Around them, whispers began to spread, but Anna couldn't hear them. All she saw, all she felt, was this strange connection, this invisible bond that had just formed between her and the man she had always sought to know. This moment would be etched in her memory forever, the first time she faced the truth, looked her father in the eyes, and said out loud what no one had dared to reveal until then. The hall suddenly seemed colder, as if time itself had stood still. Vladimir Putin, the man renowned for his composure and unquestioned authority, stood motionless before Anna. His eyes scanned the little girl with a mixture of surprise and guilt. Every word she had just spoken echoed in his mind. My mother tells me that you are my father, the one who abandoned me. For a moment, he saw himself years ago, when he and Elena had shared fleeting, secret, and intense moments. He had had to leave, choose power, and ignore the fragile bond he had just created. And now the truth hit him hard, embodied by this little girl with eyes full of hope and silent reproach. He took a deep breath, trying to regain his usual calm. The guards approached, ready to react, but Putin raised his hand, stopping them. All that protocol and rules suddenly seemed trivial compared to the small presence before him. Anna, he whispered hesitantly, his voice betraying genuine emotion for the first time. I didn't know. Anna felt a pang of triumph mixed with sadness. She wanted answers, but she could already see that he was troubled, that the wall she had imagined around him was cracked. At that moment, Elena rushed into the hall, her eyes red with fear and anger. She placed her hand on Anna's shoulder, as if to protect her, but also to confirm the truth she had just revealed. Anna has the right to know, she said firmly. The president looked down, unable to sustain the childlike gaze that demanded so much truth and responsibility in a single moment. The cameras and officials around him seemed to disappear into a blur, giving way to an intimate, almost surreal moment. Putin knew that this day would change everything, not only for him, but also for Anna and Elena. Power and politics could not erase this suddenly revealed bond. The shock came not only from the revelation itself, but from the certainty that life had just reminded him of a past he had thought he could forget. For the first time, Vladimir Putin wasn't the infallible president. He was a man facing the consequences of a choice he had made years earlier. And Anna, innocent but determined, had just confronted him with his own humanity. After a few moments of awkward silence, Elena slowly walked over to Putin and Anna. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her gaze was determined. She knew it was time for the truth to be told, for the long-kept secret to finally be revealed. Vladimir, she said in a calm but firm voice, I never wanted this story to get out. Anna was born from a love we shared, but circumstances separated us. Anna, her eyes wide open, listened to every word with an intensity mixed with fear and hope. Her mother continued. At the time, you were already taking on responsibilities beyond anything we could have imagined. I chose to protect our daughter, to keep her away from this dangerous and exposed world. Putin listened silently, his eyes fixed on Anna, then on Elena. The weight of those years of absence, of decisions made in the name of duty and power, weighed heavily on him. He had always believed that protecting Anna from afar was the best decision, but seeing his daughter now, so close and so vulnerable, showed him how painful that absence had been. Anna, unable to contain her emotions any longer, whispered. So, you knew, and you never came back, why? The president lowered his head. Every word he spoke was carefully chosen, but betrayed a deep guilt. I thought it was the only way to protect you. But I realize now that I may have made the biggest mistake of my life. Elena, placing a hand on her forgotten husband's shoulder, added. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we act from now on. Anna deserves to learn who you really are. The hall, witnessing such an improbable scene, seemed to hold its breath. The whispers around it faded in the face of the gravity of the situation. A long-buried truth had resurfaced, appending not only a family, but also the unwritten rules of power and politics. For the first time, Vladimir Putin understood that some decisions cannot be dictated by status or public responsibility. Some decisions belong to the heart, and his had just clashed with his daughter's truth. Anna, clutching her mother's hand, felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. She had finally understood her past, but the future remained uncertain. Shortly after the confrontation in the lobby, the news spread like wildfire. A few photographers captured blurry images of the scene. Rumors quickly spread across social media, forums, and international news channels, the president confronted by an unknown girl. Anna and her mother returned to the apartment, but they couldn't escape the shockwaves. Reporters milled around their building, cameras peered out of every window, and neighbors whispered with excitement and worry. The normally quiet port town had become the center of a media hurricane. In Moscow, at the Kremlin, the situation was even more critical. Political advisors tried to downplay the scene, while communications services worked on strategies to control the public image. But the message had already spread, a long-kept secret had become a global scandal. Anna, however, still didn't understand the full extent of what she had unleashed. She only saw the surprise and worry on her father's face, and she felt that the bond between them had just been created, fragile but real. Putin, accustomed to controlling every situation, felt for the first time the powerlessness of a man faced with the consequences of his own private life. He understood that his past choices, dictated by power and prudence, now had repercussions on the present and on his daughter's future. Elena, aware of the dangers and the excessive attention, gently protected Anna. "No matter what anyone says or thinks," she whispered, "we must remain united. It's our bond that matters." But even in this storm, a fragile bond was beginning to form between Anna and Putin. Every glance exchanged, every word whispered in private, strengthened this connection that neither the media nor politics could destroy. For Anna, the world had changed forever. The girl who had simply been searching for the truth about her father now found herself at the center of a national scandal, while beginning to discover the complexity of the man she called father. A few days after the revelation, media tensions had not abated. But in the secrecy of protected locations, Vladimir Putin began to meet with Anna, alone, away from cameras and prying eyes. The first meeting took place in a discreet office in the Kremlin. Anna entered timidly, still holding her mother's hand. The walls were decorated with official portraits and trophies, symbols of immense power. For the first time, Anna saw the man behind the public image, not the inflexible president the world knew, but a troubled and uncertain father. "Anna," he said softly, sitting down opposite her. I don't know how to begin. I never imagined I'd meet you like this." Anna looked at him with a mixture of defiance and hope. "You should have been there, you should have protected me." The girl's words hit Putin like a blade. He looked down, unable to respond immediately. Then, after a long silence, he whispered, "I thought I was protecting you by staying away, but now I realize I made a mistake. A big mistake." For several weeks, these meetings continued. Putin spoke to her about his childhood and his experiences, but without ever going into political details that might frighten Anna. He also got to know his daughter, her tastes, her fears, and her dreams. Anna, for her part, began to see him as a father, despite the absence and the lost time. Each encounter was fragile, full of conflicting emotions, anger, doubt, curiosity, but also the beginnings of affection. Anna knew their bond had just been formed on shaky ground, but she felt it was real. Elena watched these moments with caution and relief. She knew the road would be long and fraught with difficulties, but she finally saw her daughter meet the man she had never known. For the first time in a long time, Vladimir Putin felt the weight of his responsibility not as a president, but as a father. And for Anna, every moment spent with him opened a new chapter in a life she had always imagined but never lived. As the weeks passed, Anna began to get used to her father's regular presence. But with this closeness also came the awareness of a complex world she had never imagined. Putin's name and position meant that every gesture, every word, every smile could be observed and interpreted by millions of people. One afternoon, while they were walking in a walled garden of the Kremlin, Anna asked, "Dad, is it always going to be like this? Will everyone know?" Putin looked at her, a mixture of gravity and tenderness in his eyes. "I can't change the world around us, Anna. But I can be there for you, and help you understand who you really are." For the first time, Anna felt the weight and power of her heritage. She was no longer just an ordinary girl, she was the daughter of one of the most influential men in the country. This role came with responsibilities, but also with choices she had to learn to make now. At school, her classmates began to whisper about her situation, but Anna had learned to protect herself emotionally. She understood that her identity depended not only on the curiosity or judgment of others, but on the relationship she built with her father and mother. Despite the complexity of this new life, there were simple and precious moments, a laugh shared with his father, a knowing glance, a stroll in the imperial gardens. These moments became the fragile but essential cement of their bond. Anna realized that her childhood had been profoundly transformed. She was no longer simply a girl searching for her father, she was a child discovering who she really was, with all the strengths and vulnerabilities that entailed. But even in this sweet discovery, Anna knew the future remained uncertain. The world was watching, ready to judge, and every step she took with her father would be scrutinized and analyzed. The once carefree girl was beginning to understand the price of her inheritance, and the strength it would take to fully accept it. The following months were filled with ups and downs. The media continued to follow Anna and her father's every appearance, and rumors circulated at a frightening speed. But in the privacy of their home, Vladimir Putin and Anna began to build a stronger bond, one of patience, respect, and thoughtfulness. Elena watched every interaction with emotion and caution. She knew the situation remained fragile, but she also saw Anna's transformation, her curiosity, her self-confidence, and her ability to love despite the wounds of the past. One evening, over a discreet dinner in the apartment, Anna placed her hand on her father's. "Dad. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I want to try." Putin looked at her and nodded with genuine emotion. "Me too, Anna. We will learn together. I won't be able to repair everything that has been lost, but I will be there, every step of the way." For the first time in years, there was no distance between them, no secrets, only the fragile promise of family found. Through the challenges and the gaze of the outside world, Anna and her father began to forge a common path, blending gentleness and authority, innocence and experience. The past could not be erased, but it could serve as a lesson, and each moment shared became a victory over abandonment and silence. The future remained uncertain, full of pressures and obligations. But in Anna's eyes shone a new strength, the certainty that she had found her place, not only as the daughter of a president, but above all as a loved and recognized child. And in this fragile balance between the world and their home, one truth shone through louder than anything else: even in the most unlikely situations, love and family could be reborn, even after years of absence.